Good afternoon, everybody, for another episode. Today we have a special guest, Gina Dobson. Gina, I am to say I'm excited to have a conversation with you would be an understatement. I don't know if you can know the premise of the show, but or the podcast is just we meet one person and then we let that person decide our next host. And so, Andre felt like you are the best person. Yeah. Yeah. So I live in Idaho, and a guy from Idaho connected me to Adrian, who connected me to Thomas, who connected me to Andre, who now connected me to you. So, Gina, how are you doing today?
I am very good, and I'm tickled to death. I love that because I think connections are everything.
Yep, yep. Yeah,
And
we're
I'm here in Virginia.
Virginia.
Yes.
Nice. Well, yeah, let's dive in a little bit. I have a personally one of my belief is that everybody has a unique story, has a unique journey that they went down. And for me, I don't know if there's anything more important in this world than people and hearing kind of what their stories and their life are. So, Gina, I'd love to just kind of get started with. I'm going to throw you a little curveball, but what is your favorite TV show? Gina, what are you watching these days?
It's funny. I don't watch a lot of, I do mostly streaming, and right now I am streaming Hacks. I don't know if you've
Hacks?
seen it.
No,
Hacks. Yeah, I
no.
think it is on Max. Yes. And the premise is that an aging comedian and she's forming a relationship with a young writer, and they're trying to make that work. And as I say that, I guess it makes me laugh just thinking about the fact that if somehow consider myself an aging comedian. We've got a production company of three actresses that are at the age where we are aging out of the business, so to speak.
I know our text interactions. I know we were kind of texting back and forth. I was like, okay, this woman seems like either she's jokes around a lot or she's extremely serious and I need to like tighten up. And I'm starting to realize you joke around a lot. Your comedy is your thing.
It is my defense mechanism. If things get a
There it
little
is.
too uncomfortable, then I might crack a joke. I got in trouble at my grandfather's funeral at a young age because I farted, and that made me laugh. And because I laughed, I farted again, and so you never know what's going to happen when you're nervous.
Man, that's why we love these. That's why we love these. So let's go back a little bit. Gina, what was your like upbringing like? Can you tell me a little bit about your upbringing?
Sure. I had a very Catholic Midwestern upbringing. I grew up in Illinois, and I was awkward. I'm sure a lot of people can relate. Just I didn't have a lot of friends. My dog was my best, maybe my dog and my mom, my best friends. And I went to an all-girls boarding school, which was actually a kind of it was a convent, so to speak. And then went to Millikan University. And while I was in at Millikan, I had a miscarriage. And being brought up as I was, I kept it secret. I never told anyone about the miscarriage, except for
Mm.
my partner at the time. No one knew. And then uh, we got married and quickly divorced. And down the road, I met somebody else, and he wanted to have kids. And I said, I don't know if I can have children
Mm.
because this happened to me in college. I just, you know, but and it wasn't something I ever wanted to talk about. It was traumatic. So go on my merry way. This relationship turned out to be violently abusive, um, life-threateningly so. And I was isolated and taken to Tennessee where ultimately I had a baby, and I said to myself, I'm like, I have to save my son. So when he passed out drunk one night, I took my son and the few things that I could carry, and we took off and left. 2 weeks later, I was arrested for murder. He woke up quite mad from his
Mm.
drunken stupor, and he called the authorities and said that the miscarriage that I'd had 5 years earlier, before I even met him, he said that it wasn't a miscarriage, that it was a live birth that I had killed. And so with zero evidence, I was arrested for murder, and uh, they took me from the safe house I was staying in while my baby was sleeping, and I for was separated from him for months while behind bars. Basically, I was arrested in Virginia, extradited in a cage to Illinois, and waited for trial with a $3 million bond. So I couldn't get out on bail to even hold my son.
Wow, Gina. Wow. I
Threw you a curveball, didn't I?
yeah, was not ready for
Yes.
that, but
Huh.
my heart breaks for you. Yeah, I let's start with the boarding. We'll build up to all this.
Okay,
I know you said you went to a boarding school. What
I
was that
did.
like for you? I've
It
never had
was
anything like that, so I wouldn't know.
well, all my so I come from a big Irish Catholic family, so I had lots of aunts and uncles, and all but one of my aunts had also attended this same boarding school. It was St. Mary's Academy. It was on the Mississippi River in a very small town. In a nutshell, like my mother had gone there, obviously, but I was having such a hard time. I was with just growing up, just feeling out of place and out of touch, that I said to my mother, I'm not going to go to school. I can't go to school. Everybody hates me. I was just so unhappy. And she said, okay, I guess you're going to boarding school. So next day I was going to boarding school. And it was actually probably the best thing she could have done for me. I got to find myself a little bit more, become comfortable with myself. And also, you know what? I'm not dissing men by any means, but once you take them out of the equation with a bunch of girls, sometimes the hostilities between the females can calm down and we can
Interesting.
bond. We can bond a
Interesting.
little bit without
Interesting.
the jealousies.
That is
So,
interesting because typically when you think of like, because guys, we have a reputation of like when we have issues with each other, we just gotta face it, right? And women,
yeah.
like, they kind of hide behind things and wait till the other person's left the room. It sounds like you're saying that. Sounds like what you're saying is the solution is just remove men and we women can actually figure this out together.
Well, it made bonding with other girls. At least that was the way it felt to me at the time. The girls, I was just able to connect better, and I was so, like I said, I was so shy and so awkward that I mean, put some boys in there, and it's just a whole nother layer of that whole weirdness. So it was just a time for me to come into my own, and I've always been kind of like silly and quirky. And believe it or not, the nuns at this school, they embraced it. And they let me be me. And it was an accepting environment. And because I felt accepted, I was able to sort of become a better version of myself. At least I thought that's where I was headed. But of course, there's some stumbling blocks along the way to
Yeah,
adulthood.
there's the. That's interesting you say it that way because I feel like I've talked to a lot of people that have gone through boarding schools or have experienced with nuns, and they're not always the most positive things you hear back, right? Acceptance is like they wouldn't accept me, so I had to conform into this thing. But to hear you say that you felt like you were received well and they respected you, and
I did.
if
And you know
any,
what? These were hippie nuns. These were nuns like
oh,
that had, yeah, they were, they were like,
they didn't follow the book all the way through.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. They're fun. They're fun. I think of like like TV shows of like it's always typically it's the grandparents, right? It's like they're not supposed to be eating cookies or anything, right? And then it's like the parents leave the room and then the kid is left with the grandparent, and the parent pulls out like a cookie or something, right, to break the rule. That's how I
Right, right.
imagine these nuns. They just, but I've never heard of a hippie nun before. That's a
A whole new concept.
this
Like,
is a whole new concept.
yeah, yeah, they were pretty terrific. And you know, nuns they live forever, so they were also the same nuns that had taught my mother and her
Wow,
sisters. Yeah.
wow. Okay, okay. It sounds like you had a pretty good relationship with your parents. Is that fair to say from what I'm hearing?
I think so. I mean, my mother, I had a close relationship with my mother, and yes, she was very strict and old school. Um, but she was also the one who let me blow bubbles out the car window and wear a witch's mask all year long because I just wanted.
Where okay, where did that where do you think that came from? Like the freedom to be able to wear, because I feel like when we're young, right, we're constantly worried about other people, right? We're looking for the
Yeah.
latest trend, latest fashion. And for you to be like, I wear a witch's mask just about every day. Like, walk me through that. How did you get that level of comfort?
I will blame my mother. She was a nonconformist, and anyone who told her what to do, they were going down because she was going to do it. I also she passed away almost 10 years ago, but she was a well-known, well, I won't say well-known. She was revered amongst in our small town, like in the restaurants and stuff. That woman had some fast fingers. She could put the snatch on anything from the buffet table.
Yeah.
I still have a set of Western sizzling steak knives. And so one day she even brought us a whole cake. I worked in a hospital pharmacy at night, and she came in with a purse full of chicken and this cake
Did you say
from
purposeful?
a purse full of chicken, yes. So, yes, and big old chocolate cake. And she had gone to the Kentucky Fried Chicken buffet, and she brought
Oh
all of
no.
us in a pharmacy back some dinner. And so we're eating the purse chicken, and then she says, "Who wants dessert?" And we're like, "How did you get this whole cake off the buffet? I mean, it was
Oh,
unsliced." And she
yeah.
said, "I just picked it up and I walked out the door and nobody stopped me."
I feel like if I was like a waiter or something at a buffet and I saw a woman grabbing a whole cake, if anything, I'd be trying to help her get it out the door. You know?
She didn't look like she was doing anything wrong, so why would you question it?
And also, like, my friends and I, we do this thing where I'm like, okay, is it possible for someone to do something that's painful, but is it possible that it's more impressive than painful, right? Or like somebody steals, like, so imagine her stealing the cake, right? At what point is it more impressive that outweighs than stealing, right? Like, is it possible for somebody to do something? So we'll joke around, and it's like, you know, my daughter does certain things where she'll like take my phone and she'll chuck it across the room, right? Not like angry or anything, not angry, right? One day she threw it across the room. But here's the thing, I was more impressed at the distance that she threw than upset at the fact that she threw the thing. You know what I mean?
You know
So,
exactly what you mean.
and that's what your mom strikes me as. It's like at some point you're like, I don't even care about the cake. It's the fact that she thought about picking it up and taking it to that's more impressive. Uh, but that's pretty cool though. So it sounds like you're playful. Um, yeah, it sounds like that's definitely coming from your mom. Did you have siblings? Was your father around?
Yeah, my father was around, but he worked at a factory and worked night shifts, and my mother worked at the hospital, so they were the come and go. Yeah, it's separate that way. That worked out well because that way someone was home with us. And I have a older brother, 4 years older. In my mind, we were like very close, but in his mind, I was a pesty little sister who was always trying to tattle and stuff. So we have different
Yep.
perceptions of how we grew up that way. I mean, you pick a lock under a brother's bed one time and show the mom the porn, and you hold it against her forever, you know?
Yeah, that would cause a rift for sure. That would cause a rift for a while. I could see, I can understand where he's coming from too, though. But that's oh man. Okay, so you're one of the things that's unique about you already is like you have a playfulness to you, which I can't wait to get to later into this conversation because you've also walked down really, really dark roads. And so what were some challenges that you experienced growing up? Because it seems to be counter to what most kids go through. Most kids are trying to fit into something. It sounded like your goal was to not fit into anything. What were some challenges growing up for you?
I think I decided that or I think there was part of me was like that I'm not going to fit in because I didn't know how to fit in. So I was like,
Mm.
I'm going to reject you before you reject me kind of thing. I
Mm.
was a
How old were you
very,
around this time? When you
um,
come up?
um, like this awkward stage. Oh, I don't know if I
Yeah.
outgrew. Probably around fifth, sixth grade, and then on through
Okay.
high school. I was a very overweight child, and and I had big frizzy hair that I did not know how to take care of, and the kids would throw stuff to see if it would stick in my hair, and you know what? It always stuck. It always
Mm.
stuck.
I used to have a really big afro, like really, I mean, really big afro. And one of the problems I used to run into is like if I took a shower before the like on if I took a shower right before I got to class, like I'll be like taking a test and I'll lean forward and like water that's like been hiding will drip. And some days people would put like pencils in there, but it's like it was so big that I had no idea that there was anything in it. So
Right?
I get that. I get that moment. But anyways, keep going.
Yeah, and you know how kids are mean. Kids can absolutely be mean. I can remember the kids saying that I smelled. Maybe I did. I don't know. But and this was during times when not everybody had washer and dryer at home, and we had school uniforms, but we couldn't. I only had one uniform. I hate to say that. I don't know if I've told too many people this, but I had one uniform with two shirts. We only did laundry once a week. You do the math. Those kids might have been right. I might have smelled a little. I don't know.
You do not have a biased perspective. You seem pretty objective so far in these conversations. Like your ability to understand and see where people that's funny to me. Anyways, keep going.
This the the,
Thank
the
you.
difficulty was my mother had a saying for it. She said I was everybody's friend and nobody's best friend, and I think I was always searching for that connection because I think she meant it as a compliment maybe, but it was like an injury to me, like a failure. Like I was always looking for that other person that I could just tell everything to, you know.
Yep. 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 I yeah, I was voted the friendliest guy in my high school, and people just I mean I was friends with everybody. Right? It didn't matter who it was, but people didn't realize how isolated I felt though. Right? It's like when people are like in relationships, right? It's like I knew more about the two people in a relationship than they knew about each other. Right? Yeah, because everybody comes to you and they kind of
Yeah,
happen
yeah.
to you. Is that kind of what you're talking about around
Yes,
there?
yeah. As an adult too, I am the person that people tell everything to, but I don't mind that. And maybe it's because I have definitely come to a point in my life, which I wish I had achieved much earlier, is that I'm okay with who I am. I'm comfortable with who I am and eccentricities and weirdness and whatever you want to throw in there. I'm cool with that. And I'm also cool. I'm open-minded and people do tell me stuff. They tell me stuff. They tell me stuff they probably wish they hadn't told me afterwards, but it's okay. I'm not judging. I got enough to do without judging.
Do you think it's people can see it from a distance that you're a non-judgmental person and that's why they're
It
I
must
think that's
be. I think
yeah.
so. Yeah, I worked in HR for a while, and my office door was often closed. People just coming in and telling me all their stuff.
Yeah. Yep, yep.
But I liked it. I was the person who's when there was a party, like an office party, the boss would ask me, "Okay, tell me what's going on here and what's this person's wife's name," and that was me.
Yeah. Yeah, yep, yep, yep. I think there's something about quirky people that when you're very young, you're just weird, right? It is what it is. You're just weird. And then the older you get, and the people around you, the older they get, they I think start to not envy or get jealous because I don't want to put like a negative, but like they admire that quirkiness,
Yeah.
they admire that weirdness because they realize they lived for so long uncomfortable in their own skin that they can now recognize when someone is comfortable in their own skin. So in some ways, I think it's a compliment to who you are that people are approaching. I know for me, like, um, not take away, but I remember recently I met up with a group of people that were doing astrology, right? And I'm like, I'm not really into astrology, but I was sitting down with them having a conversation, and the people asked me, they're like, "Why are you here?" Right? Because they were just caught off guard. They're like, "Dude, there's like 14 women there. Astrology. I have no idea what astrology is." And they were like, "Why are you here?" Like not in a disrespectful manner. They were just because I was asking a lot of curious questions, and I told them that the thing that I admire about you guys is not whether what you believe is right or wrong. I just know that you sincerely believe it, and it's hard to be around people that you feel like they actually believe what they say they believe in. And I think for you, there's even just as you and I are having a conversation, I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, this woman is very comfortable in who she is. It kind of exposes areas that I'm not comfortable with who I am, you know?
Huh, I understand that too. But that's okay. I'm okay with you being exposed.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Okay, so you transition from boarding school to realizing that you're kind of standing out. You're making best friends with nuns. And then so then you did you go to college or did you not go to
I
college or
did.
what happened?
Ironically, I went back to my hometown for college. Millikan University. It was in the town where my family still lived, where I grew up, and I wanted to be a writing major, and Millikan had just started providing that. And I got a scholarship because I was valedictorian in boarding school.
Good for
So,
you. Good for
yeah,
you.
was living a life.
Yeah. That's valedictorian. That's one of those things that like I look back at and I'm like, I think I could have put all the effort in the world and I had no shot at being a valedictorian. You know what I mean? Like, some people are like, well, if I put more effort, I could have been this. It's like, no, I could have put all the effort in the world. I would not have been, there's no way I wouldn't have been able to. So props to you for being able to do that. That's actually a pretty impressive. Um, okay, so walk me through. I know you said that you ended up experiencing uh, a miscarriage in the first cycle. Walk me through that. What was going on with you as far as mentally? How are you holding up and all that?
Well, um, unfortunately, I didn't know I was pregnant until I had the miscarriage, and I was in my apartment in college. And it was my first boyfriend, and it was a. I don't want to get graphic or anything, but it was a
Yeah.
very. I thought, honest to God, I thought I was dying. I thought my insides were falling out of me,
Mm,
and I was dying. And so I was total shock. And um, my when I saw my mom the next day, because we often had coffee early in the morning together, uh, I think I think I that was really not a conscious decision to never mention it, but also was raised in a way, and I don't know if you can understand this. I know,
mm.
but we didn't talk about uncomfortable things.
Oh my gosh, you're preaching to the choir right now.
Okay, all right. So,
Yeah.
everything's good. You don't
Yep.
inflict somebody else with your discomfort. You don't say things that make anybody not happy to hear them. So yes, I was close to my mother, but there was an understanding that there were some
Mhm.
topics that were not ever discussed. I got my sex education from Sister Rosemary, so there you go.
Shout out to Sister Rosemary. Let's go. No,
Oh,
believe
and
it or not,
the book I found in my dad's sock drawer helped a little bit with the
yeah,
parts
for
that
the
she
get
left
it.
out. Yeah.
When I say you're preaching to the choir, I think you're preaching to the choir. So my mom, she was born in 44. Um, strong woman. We were raised Catholic. I mean, I could have an underwear on the floor and I'm grounded for 6 months. Like it's like the most extreme. But you're right. I mean, it's Thanksgiving, the whole family's around. How are you doing? Good, great, good.
Yes.
Right? The only things we could talk about was religion, politics, and sports. Those are the only three topics that we could talk to with all the freedom in the world. But it's like, dude, it was like I think it was like a year and a half ago. We met up with my mom and we asked her how are things going, and she told us 2 years prior she almost drowned in the ocean walking her dogs. We're like, what? Why would you? Why would you not tell us this story? You know what I mean? So it's kind
Yes.
of that.
Yes.
So did you? How did you deal with? So for me, I feel like I'm just in the beginning stages of that, realizing that I can't bottle things up. I have to talk to somebody. My life is not great, right? And you almost, unfortunately, you have to be proactive in talking to people. Like people are not going to come and pry things out of you. How did you navigate that? How did you navigate that time with your mom, with the hurt that you were going through?
Well, not talking about things, second nature.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
In
yeah.
fact, it's
Yeah.
something I tell it. I tell everything now. I'm the queen of TMI. But I realized recently, because I'm also a writer, and I realized that I can tell details all day long, but I often leave out how I feel about that detail. And
Mm,
I'm like, it's because I don't know how I feel about it. So now I'm forcing myself to think about how I feel about things and acknowledge my personal feelings. But back then, in my early 20s, we just didn't talk about it. And maybe would withdraw a little bit. Maybe I would look a little pale, but it wasn't questioned. Because,
yeah.
yeah,
You know how to do dance?
do I know how to dance?
No, I'm saying you knew how to do the dance, as in just making
Oh,
people think everything is okay, but deep down, things are not.
100%. Yes, that's where the jokes come in handy.
Yes, yes. Mine is sarcasm. Yeah, sarcasm was like
What's
that's my to go
beautiful.
to. It is. It is. I was listening to a study. This I don't know how true it is. Right nowadays, there's a study for everything. But I was listening to a study, and it was like friends that make fun of each other are more honest with each other than people that are not. So it's almost like if you take shots at your friends and like you guys joke around a lot, you're cutting at each other, like uses like it actually somehow strengthens a relationship. I don't know if it's true, but I just heard that.
I reckon there's a
Um,
line you could cross there, but I can
yeah,
see them.
yeah, 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 yeah. Um, so is would you say this was around the time when humor started to become a tool as a defensive mechanism, or has that always been a
No,
thing?
it was always, I think it was more of a way to get some attention. Like, look at me, look at me. And I would see, my brother would make a joke and everyone would laugh. I'm like, I like that. Let me get in there.
No, I know my ex and I, we went through a miscarriage, and it's interesting how people process through it, right? So my ex was very, ex- like it just showed, like you can see when you looked at her. For me, it was like I think I hid behind work, I hid behind responsibilities, and till this day, like even when you just kind of brought it up, right, it kind of hit me a little bit too in that process. But do you feel like that's something that you've since kind of been able to address, or is that still something that is
the
still,
the trauma of the miscarriage itself.
yeah,
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 there were many layers to that. Part of it was the trauma of not knowing what was happening at the
mhm,
time. That added another layer for me. And then, oh, I don't know, even now, every once in a while, I think, wow, that baby would be whatever age. I wonder what that would have been like. But honest to God, I think everything happens for a reason, the good and the bad. Am I allowed to say bad words on here?
for sure, yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
cool. I just want
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to clear that up first.
No, no, you can
But
have fun with it. Yeah, when we filter this out, we say this is not for kids, but
cool.
all I care about is talking to somebody. And so if you
All
feel like
right.
you have to guard yourself, you're missing the point. Yep, but you're right on point.
Yes, and it also came up, when I was pregnant with my son. I had another miscarriage way back then also very traumatic.
Yeah,
But and also was also very poor at the time. I was very poor, hardly had anything to eat. So obviously, I didn't really have insurance to
Mm,
be taken care of. So when I was pregnant with my son, who is now 27, um, I was afraid that, in fact, in my mind, it wasn't going to happen. I honestly did not think he was going to be born.
mm.
And
Just because of what you've gone through already.
yeah, yeah, I was actually surprised right up into right until my baby shower at work.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's very understandable, though.
I
Yeah.
think I was trying to get comfortable and brace myself for something horrible, just in case. Yeah. And then
What was
I
that
did
time
learn.
like?
Uh-huh.
Go ahead. You
I
did
was just
learn.
gonna say I learned when I was examined um, or by dur- the murder trial. When I was examined, then
Mm.
they discovered that I looked like I had an incompetent cervix, which would explain the losses.
The characters and stuff. Okay, let's go to that then. Well, let me ask you this before we get there. What was it like when you held your son for the first time? I know you said there was a lot of doubts as far as, is this
Oh,
actually gonna happen? Like,
you
am I
know
gonna hold him?
what?
Walk us through that moment. Yeah.
I hope I can do that without getting all emotional on you.
Hey,
Uh,
if you're gonna, yeah, if I'm gonna allow you to curse, then you gotta let yourself be yourself.
okay, yeah, yeah. I hate I don't want people to think that I am broken because of what I've been through, because I am 100% not. I'm very resilient, but I am an emotional human. I will say that. So the first time I held Lane, um, I had never been around a lot of babies or taken care of them or knew what I was doing. And by the time my son was born, I had already been um, separated from my family. My abuser was very good about driving away people, so I
Mhm.
had no family to lean on at this time. So here I am in the
How old were you at the
hospital,
time?
25, and living in a different state. I left Illinois and was moved living in Virginia, and it was kind of a surprise because I'd only just made an appointment with the doctor, and then I ended up going into labor before I even saw the doctor. So the first time I saw the doctor was at the delivery. Yeah. Um, but anyway, the first time I held Lane, the I don't know where the dad was at that time. He took off to go to a buffet or something. Probably went to get me some fried
Mhm.
chicken and a cake. But
Mm. So
um,
that defense mechanism coming up, huh?
So, it's all this it was a super fast labor and birth. They didn't even have time to give me any kind of painkiller, so it was all raw. It was all raw
Mm.
emotion. And you know what? I think I needed that kickstart of this is what I'm fighting for. Because when they were very gruff. I felt like I was very human handled that day, and they just plopped this little baby right here on my bare chest, and he was still wet with afterbirth, and he just barely, wiggling around a little bit. And I'm like, oh my God, that changed everything else I did for the rest of my life.
Mm.
Because before he was born, I thought I didn't have a reason to live. So I think my son saved my life. I had tried to kill myself twice before that.
Glad that Lane came when he did.
Me too.
That's, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Oh
He is
man.
also the reason that I decided I had to leave the living situation I was in with the abuse and the alcoholism, because I thought I deserved it. I knew he didn't, and I was going to protect him from that.
Um, when you say so I know I found myself in situations where I let things happen because I was holding my past hostage, right? I was abusing myself, thinking that, okay, I deserve this, whatever it is, I deserve it because I know what I did over here. What was the thing that you were blaming yourself for that you felt like you
That's a
deserved this?
that is a good question, and honestly, it almost feels innate. Like, a lot of, just being raised with the guilt. I'm not gonna blame Catholicism or my
Mhm.
parents or anything, but there was just something about, "Don't discuss the way you feel," and that to
Mhm.
me was like, "What you feel must be wrong." And, if you don't have someone to the support of people to talk about how you're feeling, you're not going to know, like, that you're normal,
Yeah. Yeah.
or that you've
Yeah.
got other people around you that, "Hey, I feel like that too." You feel completely alone. I feel scared sometimes. I didn't have any of that going on. And then the isolation I felt growing up, well, it continued into my personal relationships with my first husband, and then my abuser. It just grew. It grew from
Mm.
childhood on. Because you got to talk about things, man. You got to have
You
uncomfortable
do.
conversations.
You do. It's tough. I know for me growing up, I saw my mom cry twice. One was because she foster cared a lot of kids. One was they took one of the boys out of our house, and it devastating to her. Now, my mom, I mean, foster cared over 100 kids, adopted 6 boys,
Wow.
incredible woman. But the people found out that she was white, even though she adopted black kids, and the kid that was we were fostering at the time was black, and they took him away. And that was the time that she cried. And then the other time I saw my mom cry was when her mom passed away. And like my mom had some problem with her families as well, adopting black kids. And so she is white. It's funny because her name is Karen, but incredible woman. But but I do know that other than those two times, I've never seen my mom cry. I don't know if I've ever heard my mom say I'm sorry. Not because she wasn't sorry. It was just the military, the upbringing that she had, everything. And so I know and it's almost like, correct me, let me know if this is wrong, Gina, but like what helped me see that maybe this isn't the best is watching other people. Like when I saw other people express their emotions, there's a part of me that was just like, I wish I knew how to do that. That looks right then wrong. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do know what you're talking about. When I would see someone expressive, I would feel uncomfortable and like, ew.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah,
Let me give you your privacy so you can, like they're going to the bathroom or flossing their
yeah.
teeth or something. I shouldn't be watching this.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That was one of the things that my ex did really well was her and her family talked every single day about their emotions. And I'd just be over here like, gosh, what is this, right? And I call my mom, how's everything? Going great, going great. I'm bankrupt or I'm not bankrupt, but you know what I mean? It's like I got nothing. I'm dying over here. How's it going? Mom, things are going so good. I love it. As soon as you hang up the phone, you're finding yourself in the bathtub, shower coming down on you, try not to cry. But yeah. Um, I know you said that you were married at one point and then sounds like you got divorced and then is that when the abusive relationship came in?
Yes. Yeah. My
Okay.
first marriage was extremely brief. I got married right after college graduation, and by Christmas, I hated him. So
Mm, mm,
I think the
mm.
only thing that really tied us together was the trauma of the miscarriage. And then there was that part of me was like, oh, he's my first. I have to
Mhm.
be with him and forever and ever. But yeah, obviously I was still at a very vulnerable spot in order to start a relationship with someone who now as an adult I see had many, many, many red flags that I preach these red flags to my own daughter, even to this day.
Yep,
But
yep, yep.
yes, I very quickly allowed this stranger to move into my house and within not very long time passing, we moved to Virginia together. Packed up all of my things because he didn't have anything, and off we went.
What drove you guys out there? Was it his work or your
Uh,
work or
well, I always wanted to leave where I grew up. I just wanted to leave so bad. I felt like that's where all my failures were. I wanted to move, and he smelled that, and he he um he had trouble holding a job. He could never hold a job, but he injured himself at one of the factories, and he got some kind of check for that.
settlement? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah. And he's like, "Oh, look, baby, we can move anywhere you want." I'm like, "Oh, I'm in. I am so
Yeah.
in." And I actually picked Virginia. I picked Virginia, and went. I had gone to the library, looked up best places to live. Virginia Beach was in the top, and I'm like, "That's where I want to move." So we went and got a truck, and it's just wung it from there.
Yeah, yeah. So when you guys got out there, I know you said things started to when you got over there, things started to get abusive. Did you realize that you were being pulled away from families and friends, or was that something you discovered down the road?
Um, so the abuse started very gradually, and it started before we even moved. I mean, it was the police came to our house before we moved and said somebody had reported that they'd seen me getting beaten outside. And you know what I did? I did what I know a lot of women do, and uh, I said, "No, there's no problem here." Uh, of course, he's standing right there watching while the police ask, but
Yep.
I blamed myself, thought I would do better and not make him mad, and that's just the way it must work. In fact, uh, Josh, I only learned
Oh,
a couple years. Well, it's not even been a couple years ago. I'm in a tremendous support group, and I just learned that not all women are beat. Who knew it? I, honest to God, until a couple years ago, thought all women were beaten. And then I thought, I can't believe I thought all women were beaten. I didn't even know that I thought that until somebody said, "Well, I can understand that because I've never been abused." And I'm like, "What? There are people like
mm,
that?" And then I was like,
mm.
"Shame on me." So I thought there was part of me that accepted it because that's just the way things were. And then there was another part of me that accepted it because I thought I deserved it. Um,
Yeah. In those situations, because I don't know what that looks like, but I'm assuming the police, they're not oblivious. They know things are not okay. Are they
uh,
by law required to whatever you say? They have to abide by that. So if you say it's okay, like whether they agree or not, it doesn't matter. Is that kind of how it works in those
I
situations?
think and this was a long time ago. This was
Yeah,
in
yeah.
the late 90s. But yes, and that is one of the things that I'm work towards, advocate towards correcting now is changing these procedures and the way that victims and survivors are handled with the law. That is something that needs to
Yeah.
change.
Yeah. The upbringing that we had is so my mom was disowned for adopting black kids. My
Mm.
brothers all come from like physical abuse, drug abuse, sex abuse, alcohol abuse. Like I was an orphan, right? Like we all come from these pre-destructive, unfortunate situations, and they have a way of molding you to see the world in a certain way. Because like Gina, I barely know you, and I can tell you this right now: grit has got to be one of your strongest skill sets, right? If there's a wall, you know how to push through. It's probably my strongest. It's one of my strongest too. It's like it doesn't matter what the problem is, I can go through that wall. Now, there might be arrows, I might be bleeding, head like you know what I mean? Like I'm gonna have all these things, and I'm gonna act like they don't exist, right? But
Right.
I can get through any wall, which
Yeah.
it sounds like, I mean, to get to where you are, you kind of had to. Um, what happened next? So you had this situation, you moved to Virginia, this relationship. What happened? How did you get out of that? What was the situation that came out of that?
So I'll try to condense this part of the story because we
You don't
would
have to
probably.
condense it. This is we can
I
just
don't know how
yeah,
much
you're
time
good.
you want to give me here, but
There's been
okay.
my podcast run 2.5 hours, so you got time. But
Oh, okay.
yeah,
All
you're
right.
good.
So it was hard, man, moving out to Virginia from Illinois without having jobs and places to live was I don't recommend it. It just so you know.
Yep.
I was very fortunate that a longtime friend of mine, my earliest friend, she's still my friend to this day, the area I live in has a lot of military bases, and her younger brother was stationed out here. And she said, "Oh, he's out there with his wife. You can stay with him when you get there." So we did. We came and we stayed with Buffy's brother for a couple weeks. But you don't want to be an imposition on somebody, and I wasn't used to living as an imposition. Um, so we tried to get jobs as quickly as possible and ended up in, I'm just going to say, we got evicted probably 4 or 5 times because he kept losing his
Wait, this
job.
is the part that you had a hard time saying was the evicted. After all the things you went and said,
Well,
this is the one.
trying to ball up
Oh my
many
goodness!
evictions of
I feel like that's like the softest things you said this whole conversation. I guess I'll be honest at this point.
after stealing from many buffets and
There it is.
um, he lost a lot of jobs. He was worsening alcoholic. My beatings were getting uh, every other day. I was getting beat. The one thing is, and this sounds really bad, is that I knew if I got a really bad beating one day, I knew the next day I probably wouldn't get one. So that was nice.
Wow, wow.
Yeah.
I can't imagine can't imagine any of that. Like that's just even as I hear you say this, I know stuff like this happens, but to hear somebody say it like it's just kind of silences the room because
Well,
there's
yeah.
in a way that is that it really is heartbreaking, Gina.
Um, yeah. Yeah. I wasn't processing things the way they actually were. And I understand that now. Like, for example, there was one night, and this was even before we left Illinois. And this is the point in my life where I should have said, "See ya." He said, "You know what? You take such good care of me," because I was the breadwinner and bill payer and all the good stuff. And he says, "Tonight's your night. When you're going to go out, you can have as much as you want to drink, and I'm going to be the designated driver." I'm like, "Cool. Yeah. All right. Let's do this." Go out, go. I
Yeah,
can't remember where we went. I had some rum and cokes. We're going we're driving back to my house in my car, my little not little, my big old white Chrysler LeBaron convertible, driving home, and smack, we hit the back of another car. He's driving, like I said. He was not. He was when every time he was going up to the bar getting me something, he was slugging one back. Yeah, so I was injured. I was knocked out as soon as the impact. The last thing I remember is hitting a window. And the next thing I remember is I'm bleeding and he's dragging me into the driver's seat. So he was
Gina.
trying to pin his DUI on me. And so the EMTs come, the ambulances come, right? And I used to work at the hospital, so I knew the ambulance drivers, and I got blood running down my leg, and I'm in the driver's seat, and they come around to my door, and they're like, "Gina," and I just start crying. I said, "I didn't do it. I didn't do it." And he said, "You weren't driving?" I said, "No." He says, "I think we can tell that because your head's busted in the same
It
place,
doesn't
the
make sense
window
that the angle.
on the
Yep.
other side." He said, "But don't worry, we got you, right?" And then I was like, he's going to be so mad. Then I was scared. And they take me to the hospital. And then he ends up in the hospital too, even though he wasn't injured at all. And the ER doctor comes in, who also knew me, and I can hear my boyfriend calling my name. And I said, he's here. And he said, yeah. He said as soon as he found out he was going to jail, he suddenly had an injury. So they had brought him to the a- and to be checked out because they had to. But
Yeah.
there was nothing wrong with him, and they took him. They took him to jail. And the two women that we had hit in the car, they stayed. They stayed at the emergency room for me. They waited until I was done being treated and everything, and they came into the room, and as soon as I saw them, and they said, "Hey, we were in a car in front of you," and I just started crying and told them I was sorry, and they said, "We know it wasn't you. We wanted to stay here and make sure that you're okay,"
That's
and
beautiful.
they wanted to
That's
give me a
beautiful.
ride home because I didn't have any way to get home, and they took me home, and all the way they were telling me, anybody who would do that to you,
Yeah.
who knows what else they could do to you. They'll do
Yeah.
anything. And I was like, yeah, you're right, you're right. And they were just so wonderful. And they gave me their phone numbers and said, you need something, you call us. I'm like, yeah, I got this. And I go into my house and I open the door and I'm alone. And I didn't want to be alone. And then he called me from the jail the next morning, and then we just kept on going. And I thought he would come out of jail, sober and a different person, because I mean that's what he said he was going to do. That he learned his lesson.
Do you I'm not asked this question specifically, but what was the thing that you felt like, first of all, those two women to
Hmm.
respond the way that they responded, like,
I want to be like them.
yeah, there's the man upstairs was looking over you.
Yeah,
That's the best way I can say. Like, and of all the people that could have been there to help you, the fact that it happens to be EMTs that know you, that care about you, like the timing of all that is just it's beautiful. Um, and as I was kind of hearing the story, I kind of had a feeling where this was going to go, right? It's like you find yourself back in it again. What did you feel like you were holding on to? Like, was it just, I just wanted to punish myself? Or was there a
felt
glimmer of hope that you
worthless.
saw? Yeah.
Okay, there's a part of me. Okay, that's a very good question. And yeah, I consider myself a person that wants to help. And if I can make somebody's life a little better, and I'm maybe I think there was a part of me that thought, oh, he's had a hard time. He's had a hard time, and I should understand that, and I should help and nurture this and see him through it. And also, I didn't think I deserved any better than that.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the thing that you felt like you blamed yourself the hardest? Like, because I hear your past and it sounds like things that have been done to you, right? It's not necessarily things that you have done, like, right? So, like, you look at painful
Yeah,
memories. Yeah, go ahead.
I I take responsibility for all of my choices, and even then, and um, I mean, I have no regrets. I don't have any real regrets because I think we're all on a path that we're supposed to be on, and it leads us and creates who we're meant to be. But I definitely uh, I definitely blamed myself for making such bad choices. I mean, I look at my first husband and I'm like, wow. Oh, see, I met my first husband on a prank phone call. I do not make good choices.
No, but I think would you say that there's a difference between like, um, so, like, let's say you did something horrific to somebody, right? And you're like, then some bad things start happening to you, then you're like, you know what, I deserve this,
Yeah, I
right? Like,
understand that. Hmm.
yeah, you can do that. When I hear your story, yeah, you could say like, hey, I made bad decisions. Prank call, married my husband. I hear that, but they're not. Those don't seem like things that uh, lead one to think that they deserve punishment, right? If I was to commit a crime, if I can see a for you, what is it about yourself you felt like um, was not okay that you felt like you needed to punish yourself? Because
I
it
don't
sounds,
I
you know
don't
what I
think
mean?
I didn't have like a specific thing. I think it goes back
Okay.
to that whole thing about not talking about things. If you don't talk about things, then you assume they're bad. Oh, so let me give you an example, a silly
Please.
example. So, grew up, obviously, I think you probably did too. You did not say bad words. At the very worst, you spelled them, right?
Mm. Didn't even
So,
HE double hockey stick.
exactly. So,
Yeah, I got you.
my mother called her private area an IT because grandma would say, "Did you wash it?" IT. So if if you can't talk about it, it's obviously not good. So in my mind, none of my feelings were good. You know what I mean? I that's kind of an easy way to look at it, but that's kind of the way I was processing too.
Yep, yep. Like I said earlier in this conversation, I feel like I'm on the beginning stages of just even tapping into what I feel hurt by traumas, right? All these things, like it's literally it's like trying to learn a new language, right? I would rather
Yeah,
learn Mandarin, right, than trying to learn feelings. So
yeah.
I get you on that. I get you on that. Um, okay, so he makes the phone call. Obviously, you go and help him out. He's back in the house. How much longer did that go on? What was happening in that? And also, was that the one that led to uh, the the road that you went down, or is that different
So
relationship?
it was so after the whole jail thing, after he went to jail for that DUI.
Yeah,
I didn't know he'd already lost his license and that he'd had multiple DUI. I didn't know any of that. That was all news to me. Um, but after that, other people were like, oh, advising me
yep.
to not. And that led to him saying, we need these
To
people
move.
don't understand us.
You need
They
to
don't
move.
understand our relationship and how much in love we are. And so that started the gradual isolation of me from friends and family. So the move was very motivated. Like he really wanted to get me away from everybody. And I was already wanting to get away. I didn't want to be in the same town where I felt like I had failed so many times.
Yep, yep. That's interesting you say that because in one sense you recognize because it sounds like you recognize why they were saying what they were saying,
Yes,
but
I do.
but
Yes.
you just didn't kind of like having to face the music is more daunting than because in one sense you at least know what you're getting over here, right? Even if it's not okay, even though it's mistreatment, right? It's abuse.
Mhm.
You at least know it's predictable versus over here the possibility there could be a new path, new opportunity. In some ways, that can seem more scary, right? Is that fair
And I
to
didn't
say?
want to be alone. I did
Yep.
not want to be alone. Yeah, so it wasn't too long after that that we ended up just packing up and moving to Virginia, where he cut me off from my family very methodically. My mother called on my birthday um, to tell me happy birthday, and he was mad because the phone call woke him up when he was drunk. And he literally yelled at her, said she doesn't want to talk to you, don't ever call here again, and he threw the phone across the room. And that was the last time I heard from my mother for a very long time. Yeah, a very long time. In fact,
How
I
long was it?
um, that would have been in at least probably a year. Um,
And that was your best friend, no?
she was, yes, we were very close. Yes. Um, so that was I'm trying to go back in time here.
Yeah.
I was
It's only been a couple
When I was
years.
pregnant with
Don't
my
yeah.
son, like I said, I did not think I was going to carry him full term, and was he was on like his
Did you have your
16th
son with
job.
this guy?
hmm I
Okay, okay.
sure did. Yeah, that was his biological father. Um, oh well, I got a temp job at a bank, and every I loved it. I loved being at the bank because that was the only people I really saw, right? And I considered everybody there my friend, and the boss, she became like my surrogate mother. You know, she wanted to put me in management training. She was terrific. And then he says, "Baby, I don't want to work here anymore. I want to move back to Nashville where my family is because I should be singing on stage." And that was horrifying to me. I knew once again I was going to be taken away from everything I knew. And I guess I should back up to say that while I was working at the bank, I did have my son. I told you
Yep,
about his delivery. Um,
yep.
and I just kept on working at the bank, and I begged my boss. As soon as I told my boss that I was having a baby, she hired me full time so I would have benefits, and like
Wow.
immediately, yes. And I was like, I need more money, and so she was letting me come in on the weekends, but I didn't have any place to take my son, so she would let me bring my baby in on the weekends, and I was just working and working and working, trying to make money and save money, and I had in my head, I was like, I'm going to figure out a way to get out of this.
Yeah.
And he was like, where's all your extra money? You say you're working all these hours, but he had control of the bank card and everything. So he kept wiping out our account, hence all the evictions. And they start pawning my jewelry.
Were you guys married at all at any point or no?
No,
Not
thank
married.
God.
Okay.
Oh, okay. Well, there's another little piece to the puzzle. We were not married, but for a very wonderful reason. My first husband wouldn't divorce me. I hadn't seen him in
Oh,
years. He would
so you
never.
could?
I couldn't, and I was so happy that that was,
Did you get to a
because I
certain
had
point
it.
where you're like, yeah,
Yeah, he was mad about it, but it was it's the only thing that stopped him from legally owning me. Thank God.
yeah.
S-
When you talk
So,
about like bank accounts, everything, I was like, those seem like a lot of marriage things to do. So the fact
yeah,
that, okay, anyways, I'm following.
yeah. Um, so before Lane turned one, he was going to be one in May, and so I think it was around February that he's like, we're moving to Nashville, and I said I don't want to, and he said if you don't come to Nashville, I'm going to kill you in front of your baby.
Wow.
And then he would make these jokes all the time after that. He says, "I'm going." He would pick up our baby and say, "You want me to kill mommy, don't you?" And then he would talk about how he's going to take him out and get him laid and give him drugs and get him drunk. He would say things like that all the time. And you know what I have learned is that if someone says you're going to kill you, they probably will. So, um, uh, I was like, okay, I don't know what to do. At this point, I was horrified and didn't feel like I had any place to turn. And they threw me a going away party at work. And that day, somebody came into. It was a friend of mine at the bank who actually became my husband years later. But he came in and he said, "I hear them throwing a party." And I said, "Yeah, yeah, it's for me. I'm moving to Nashville." And he says, "Oh," he says, "are you getting married?" Because he knew I'd had the baby.
Yeah.
And I said, I don't know where it came from. I said, I can't marry someone who beats me. And then I
Dang.
just put my head down. I was on this table, I was in a coffee room, and I just couldn't look because I was so ashamed. It's the first time I said the words out loud. And he said, "You need to talk to someone." And I said, "I know." And so I I didn't even know this person that well. And I was like,
Yeah.
okay, well, I opened the door. I opened the door and thank God that I did. I walked straight to my boss and I said, and I told her, I just straight out, I said, "Phyllis, this is happening to me." And she stood there and she said, "You just say the word and I will have the entire volunteer fire squad at your apartment and we will clean it out and you never have to see him again." And I said, "I can't do that." because he says he's going to kill me.
Baby.
And
Yeah.
I said, I need to get him out of Virginia or I'll never be safe. And she said, okay, what do you want to do? I said, I want to move to Tennessee with him. And as soon as he gets a job, I'm going to pack up my baby and I want to come back here. So you hold my job for me. And she got on the phone. She was a powerful woman. She did remind me of my mother. And she called the payroll department and she said, I want you to stop all of Gina's checks. Don't deposit them into her account. And then she sent me down the road to a different bank, told me to go
Yep.
set up
Start a
my
whole
own
new account.
fresh account.
Yeah.
Yes, and I used her address so nothing would come to wherever we were living. And I took it all back to her. She made all my last few checks go into that. I wouldn't have access to it for a while, but at least when it was all done, it would be there. And we packed up everything and moved to Nashville and waited for that moment for him to get a job. And he just one of his sister's mother-in-law let us stay in a house that she wasn't using, so he didn't have to pay any rent, and he just wasn't going to work. And I was like, I don't know what to do. He went out to get drunk, and I called my boss and I said, I'm so sorry, I'm still coming, and please hold my job. And she said, don't don't worry, I've got you a place to stay when you get here and everything's going to be okay. You just do this, just be safe. And again, I had bundles of clothes tied up and balled up in the back of the closet and all Elaine's stuff ready for whenever that moment was. We could just run to the car. And it took 3 weeks. 3 weeks passed, and he says, I'm going up to my sister's house up the road and have a few drinks. I'm like, okay, good. And then late that night, I don't know, it was 2 o'clock in the morning, I guess, I hear screaming out in the darkness. Oh, mind you, we were in the sticks. We weren't in the city. We were out like in the hills, and it was super dark. And I hear screaming, and in comes his him with his brother-in-law's carrying him like this, like a baby, and he's screaming that he's paralyzed. And the guy looks at me and he says he's drunk, and I'm like,
Yeah.
so he went and he laid him down, and as soon as I said, this is it. This is my opportunity. As soon as I heard him start snoring, we loaded, oh, I
Yeah.
loaded up
Yeah.
the car
Yeah. Yeah. Lane was
and
put
then
work.
I put my baby in this car and then we just take off, right? We're going down the gravel road. And then I realized I'd left my purse
No.
with my driver's license in it. And I was so scared. What is he going to do with my ID? What's he going to do? Do I go back? Is it worth it? And I told myself that I didn't want him having my social security number. And I went back up the road and I'm like, if he's awake, I knew there's a shotgun in the house because he'd already pointed it at me more than once. And I get there and the house is still totally dark. And I go open a door and I can hear him snoring. And I grabbed my purse and I ran and we just flew down that road again. I didn't have any money because, again, my boss had all my bank stuff. All I had was the change that was in my son's piggy bank, and we used that for gas. I don't know how we did it, but we drove back to Virginia and we made it and got settled into the house that my boss had procured for me with my very good friend. And it was 2 weeks later, a SWAT team surrounded that house in the middle of the night and and took me away while my son was asleep inside. I said to my friend that owned the house, I said, take care of my son. But in my mind, this all I'm thinking is this is a mistake. I don't know what they didn't tell me what I was being arrested for.
Mm.
And it wasn't really real to me. I thought I'll be home by morning.
Mm.
I wasn't told. I don't think I was told for 2 days what my actual charge was. They put me in isolation on suicide watch. And so I had until they took me to be questioned by detectives, which detectives that didn't believe that I had been abused because they said I didn't act like I had been abused. Yeah, there's something to be said for making jokes in the wrong time.
Yep. 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 Yep.
So,
So wait, so the SWAT team, everybody comes, takes you 2 days. They don't tell you what it is, and then eventually they tell you what it is, right? And what were
they don't
they?
tell me. When I finally, they allude to it when I'm being questioned. What they're hoping is that I will say it, but I
They
don't
were
know
trying to
what's
get you to
going on.
confess something.
Yes, yes, they questioned me for 8 hours straight, and
I don't know much about the judicial system, but I feel
I
like
don't
the
think
idea
that's
of
right.
prying something out of somebody just doesn't seem right. Like if you have the evidence, you have the evidence. If you don't, I don't know. Again, I don't know
Yeah,
it, but it just seems so wrong.
yeah, there's some coercion there.
Hmm.
Um, but it wasn't until I went in front of the magistrate and I'm told I was charged with murder, and that's when I found out. So, when I was a so like I said, I hadn't talked to my mother in a long time. The night I was arrested, I called. I didn't
So
know
when you
any.
texted me that yesterday, you were being serious.
Yeah, I thought you knew. I totally
No.
thought you knew. I'm like, oh, he's trying to make a joke. That's funny.
So, people that are listening, I'm gonna read you something between Gina and I because it's gonna need a little context. But so what ended up happening was I was trying to get some details for our conversations with Gina and I, and so here's how our text goes. She said, "Hey Joshua, do you want to connect beforehand? I'm not sure how much Andre told you about me." So I responded, "Sure, we could do that. He has not told me much. I am with my daughter for the next 4 hours. I can call you after." She said, "This is Gina. Again, we've never had a conversation before." She says, "I'm on the news tonight, and I'm afraid I'll be detained around then. Got time before the podcast? Maybe around 12:45 to 1." I said, thinking this is a joke. I thought this was a joke. So I said, "What's the time for? Ha ha." And then I said, "Tomorrow before podcast works." Then she responds, "Ironic since it's about my arrest for murder." So at this point, I'll be honest with you, I had no idea how to take this conversation. So I just said, "But they will let you make the podcast tomorrow, haha." And she said, "Oh yeah." And so the whole time I was like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm gonna have to tread this a little softly. So okay, so
I was like, should I put a
joking.
laughing face emoji? Is that wrong? I don't know.
That's hilarious. I'm being honest with you. I remember I was with my daughters. I was driving them, and I was like, I don't think I think she'd be serious. So anyway, so here we are to the story. So you were being serious, okay?
Yeah.
So it was
Yeah.
for, so they said it was for murder, and then okay. So what happened next on that?
Um, well, when I was arrested, you get to use the phone. So, and it was late at night, and I was actually arrested in my nightgown.
What year would this have been around?
It would have been 1998.
Okay, okay,
It was in May. It was a couple weeks before my son's first birthday. So anyway,
yeah.
um, I o- I didn't know who to call, right? I didn't know who to call, and I really didn't have a lot of phone numbers memorized. Um,
And then your mom, you haven't talked to in over a year, correct? But there's that.
yes, and you're
Yeah.
only allowed to call collect, as I'm sure you know. And I figured if I called there, my my dad and I had obviously weren't doing well. I say if he answers the phone, in my mind he wouldn't accept the charges anyway. So I called my friend from the bank, who was the one that I first told what happened,
Yep.
right? I called him because
Are
I
you talking
actually,
about your now husband, though, right?
yes,
Okay,
correct. I
okay, okay,
called him
okay.
and I
What's his
said,
name?
Stan,
Go Stan. Go Stan.
right?
Okay.
Stan the man.
Yeah.
So I called him and I said, Stan, I've been arrested. And obviously that's weird. I mean, but he's like, what's wrong? Why? And I'm like, I don't know. I said, I need you to call my mom and tell her. And so I gave him the phone number, and the next day, or when I was in my cell, I called, and he said, I talked to your mom. I guess it must have been within hours, like, but anyway, when I called him, he said, I talked to your mom and she's on her way. She's on her way here. And I was like, oh, dang, why is she going to do that? Because to me, this was going to be over. It's going to be over soon. She doesn't need to do that. Why is she going to do
Yeah.
that? And
Oh, yeah. He
uh,
thought this was a 2 day, we're out of here kind of thing.
yeah, I thought
Yeah.
that night, I thought I'd be home before my son woke up. And
Oh.
and s- she flew. It was the first time she ever flew in her life. She and my brother flew from Illinois, like immediately, Illinois to Virginia, so that they could get my son, so he'd be safe. Because when I came back from Tennessee, my boss told me I should talk to legal counsel to keep my son safe. And so I did. And the legal counsel was useless. They also didn't believe that I was abused. And they told me in the state of Virginia, possession is 9/10 of the law. So that meant if he came and stole Lane from me, I could do nothing about it. He would just be gone. And so, thank God they came and they got him and they took him back to Illinois. And also, mother used all her powers and got a legal team together for me. And so I stayed in isolation in Virginia Beach. I learned it was suicide watch, the hole or whatever. I stayed in there for 10 days and then they put me in general
Why did they
population.
why did they put you on that watch if they don't believe you were abused? Like I'm trying to figure out, like, you would think that if somebody has been abused, gone through a suicide watch, how did they jump to that conclusion, but yet say you
Um,
didn't have?
yeah, and I can't really speak to that except for
Yeah.
assumptions. One thing is, one of the arresting officers said that I ran, which is not true at all. I was wearing a nightgown and sitting on. Uh, Back up a little bit. I talked to my mom on the phone before this happened. My boss made a phone call for me. She said, "I know you miss your mom. I know you." She said, her exact words to me were, "You know how much you love your son. That's how much your mom loves you." And she says, if you want, I'll call her and I will tell her what happened to you so you don't have to rehash all that. And then you can just talk to her. And so I did get to talk to her before this. Just so I was sitting on the living room floor at my friend's house, just fresh out of the shower. Lane's in the other room, and I'm talking to my mom on the phone. And there's this banging on the door, and it's dark outside. And it scared me. And I said, okay, mom, I'm going to let you go. Someone's at the door and I'm in my nightgown. I hang up and I go to the room that I stay in. Then when they come in, there's a lot of yelling and I'm staying in my room because that's scary. And then I hear them yell my name and I walk out. So there was no running, but that was one of the things that held against me. The officer said that I tried to run. So now I'm a runner. I'm a risk. Um, they said anytime there's a child involved, that's automatically they put you at a higher risk for suicide. So
Okay,
that's
I see.
a couple of the
Yeah.
reasons. But I ended up in general population there for I don't know, maybe a week while I was waiting for transportation to drive the extradition. I don't know how much you know about extradition.
Not much.
It is some dirty bullshit. It
Really?
is
Like, are you able to say?
outsourced, privatized companies. It was torture. It was like cattle. We were treated like
Mm.
animals. I was in a cage
And
at
this is before you're
sometimes.
like convicted of any. I mean,
Yeah.
before you found. Yeah, I see what you're saying. So you're like, you don't even know if I'm innocent or guilty, and this is the treatment I'm getting.
Yeah, we are Obviously handcuffed, shackled or at the legs, also chained very tight around the waist with our handcuffs fastened to us, so you can't do anything, right? And then because I was all pretty much always the only female, for my protection, I was also put inside a cage on these overcrowded vans of other inmates. And we were
Wait, they had you within a cage inside a bus?
in a van. Yeah. It took it took 10 days to drive from Virginia to Illinois.
And that whole time you're inside there.
They transferred me to other vehicles, and they only stopped. They only fed each of us a McDonald's hamburger and a small cup of water for every meal. They wouldn't stop for other, like going to the bathroom or anything. Somebody got sick. I mean, it was really, it was super crowded. They encouraged fighting. Sometimes they
What do you
would
mean they
give,
encourage fighting? Like
well,
just
for example, or, um, I mean, most of these guys were big guys, the inmates that were on these vans, and they were hungry. They were hungry and packed in and chained together, and it was so tight and so hard to breathe that there was a lot of agitation. And one day, um, one of the guards that we affectionately called Grimace, she decides she decides that she is giving this one guy a fish sandwich instead of the allotted hamburger. And one of the other guys, I call him the embezzler.
hmm
She's the embezzler says, "Hey, how come he gets fish?" And she says, "Because he's Muslim." Okay. And then she hands him French fries. And then so he's like, then why does he get French fries? She says, because he doesn't give me any trouble. And then she smiles and she climbs in her seat up in the van while the fight, she's hoping to fight because
Break
everybody
out.
starts jumping at this guy. We're trying to move towards this guy because they're chain gang style back there. They're attached to one another as well as bound to themselves. And one of the guys was smart enough to say, "No, guys, don't touch him. That's what they're trying to do. They want you to get mad so that they can then attach you to the bench and just make you that more restricted." My understanding is they fed us and gave us so little to drink because they were allotted a certain amount of money for food, and if the less they could spend, the more they would have.
I see what you're saying. Yeah, that's okay. I'm following. I'm following.
I We stopped at prisons along the way once in a while to sleep, to rest, and also to pick up other inmates or to drop some off. We spent the night in the Detroit prison where I was affectionately deloused with scalding chemicals. We weren't allowed to shower. Actually, that was the only shower I had during those 10 days of travel. We weren't given clean clothes. Um, it it was it and you never knew where you were. And I mean, I understand that for safety reasons, but if you treat people like animals, chances are they're going to act like animals. I We stayed sane. For a while, was on the van with the same group of guys, and we we talked, we bonded. There was one guy who was going for life, and he was sitting right next to my cage, right? And he would occasionally poke me through the cage. I learned that he was a murderer and a rapist, but he what I would pretend to sleep so that I didn't want to make him mad by ignoring him, so I just pretend to sleep. But then um, he's like, Gina, you got to see this. And so I look, and this guy, he's crying. He's got tears running down his eyes. He says, you have to see this." And I look out the back of the van window, and the other guy, all the other inmates are there. A couple of them are also they're just in silence and awe. It, they were seeing the sunrise, and they hadn't seen it in so long. I guess it's just a reminder. Um, and to me, it was a reminder that we're all in this together. Crazy ass this crazy ass life,
Yep.
and you can find something beautiful anywhere. You just have to look.
How did you so I've heard about, when it comes to the criminal justice system, right? I've heard about privatized and what that does and the incentives and right. I've heard of in the inner cities you hear this a lot where people are uneducated and they just agree to whatever's in front of them, right? Because they're trying to avoid the biggest thing, right? And you have people being locked up for things that they didn't do. So I'm assuming at some point they separated you guys from you get to where you need to be.
Hmm.
What happened
Yeah.
after that?
The van finally gets to Macon County, Illinois, and I'm
Mhm.
separated from my little group that I'd actually grown quite fond of. um, um, but when we were getting to Illinois, I recognized the landscape because we would all make bets where we were going next and who would get out of here next. And I was like, guys,
Yeah.
it's me. I recognize the cornfields, the
How long
silos.
did this
It's
take, by
me.
the way? Like,
The
how many days did it take before you guys started all like kind of chopping it up and stuff?
well, my entire extradition was 10 days. Well, for what should have been less than two, but
Yep.
that's because they kept making side trips to other prisons because the more they hauled, the more money would get. So yeah, in fact, I would get closer to Illinois, and then they would turn around and go back to Maryland, or it was difficult to say the least. Um, one of the one of the guards on the vehicles told the DA that I made a full confession. I made a full confession during extradition. That's what he said. Um, when my lawyer told me that, and that was
Did you
another
know what
reason.
you were in for by then? At that point, you knew what they
Yes,
were getting you for. Okay, okay.
yes, yeah. But also, I didn't tell anyone what I was in for because you do not want to be in prison or in jail or any of these things, and be labeled a baby killer.
Yeah, yeah,
That's very
yeah.
dangerous. Um, so he said I made a full confession, and I was like, no, I
Does that
didn't,
hold
because
any
my
weight?
lawyer said, huh?
Does that
I'm
hold
sorry.
any weight? Like, if they don't have actual proof of you saying it, it doesn't hold any weight, right?
Well, it doesn't. It doesn't. It shouldn't. It shouldn't hold
Yeah,
any weight. But
that's probably a
at this
better way.
point, I'm less than human. I have no rights, and these people are the ones that are believed. Um,
I'm saying, like, could the lawyer say, "Hey, I have a police officer that said he heard her confess this." Can that be used?
it is used in the way that I had a bond of $3 million. Him saying that I made a full
Wow.
confession, that
Okay.
other officer saying that I tried to run, made it surefire promise that I was not getting out on bond.
$3 million is an insane amount.
Hmm. It is a deliberately insane amount in
Yeah,
1998.
exactly.
Um, so yeah, I made it to I made it to Macon County, and my dad was a jail guard. Yeah, yeah. So I was like, oh, that's another layer. Also, the whole time I'm being told by guards and that I'm never getting out. I'm told that I'm going to be spending the rest of my life there in behind bars. Because
Is
it
this
was
normal
already assumed.
behavior? Yeah, is this normal behavior or is this more of like they actually think you did it and so that's why they're treating you this way?
I think I can only guess, but
Yeah,
I feel like this is the way inmates are treated, and
yeah.
yeah, it's tolerated. It's known coercion. I mean, every time I changed from one vehicle to another, they would reshackle and handcuff me. But you know what? All you have to do is say so. They would kick you. like I'm standing there, and instead of saying spread your legs, they kick me in the legs, and then I fall, and of course then that's how they do it. Like, how I don't understand that kind of treatment for anybody. Um, so I make make it to where I'm going to be tried, and my dad is the first time I'd seen him in 3 or 4 years. I guess it would might have been 3 years at that point since I had left Illinois and moved to Virginia. And he was so kind and so compassionate. Um, he, I was in this windowed booth in the intake area, because they hadn't put me in a cell yet, and I had slept on this bench all night, and the shifts changed. I kept looking for my dad because I didn't know when he worked or anything. Because when I moved away, he didn't work at the jail; he worked in a factory. And then I hear this little knock, and it's my dad. And I sat up and I cried, and he said it's going to be okay. But but of course he worked on the men's side, so I really didn't see him. I didn't really see him after that. A couple of times, a little note slid under my cell door with a smiley face on it. um,
Do you
and I
think
know he
all of
kept
this is
tabs.
just a coincidence? Or do you think
They, I know, right?
like of all the, like when you first said your dad, it didn't even register it's the same location. Until you
Yeah.
just said this. Then I'm like, oh my goodness. Because in my heart, in my mind, when I heard you say that, I was like, how beautiful would it be if her father was able to visit her? And so when you said this, I was like, oh, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
But this doesn't. There's no way this is random.
Right. Yeah.
At the lowest moment in your life, right?
He has
And it's
access
like
to me. Yes.
he has access to you. Yeah.
So, yeah. Um, I am put in the general population, but because my dad was there, I think they, I I don't know if kindness is the right word, but
Treat
they
you
did.
differently.
Um, they put me in a cell or a pod that they thought would be less dangerous for me, because as they were leading me through the blocks, past all the windows and stuff, these women knew I was coming because I was on the news all the time. In fact, the guards told me as soon as I was brought in, you're a celebrity. You're on the news every day as a baby killer.
Just not a good
Media
kind of celebrity. Yeah. Yeah.
had already convicted me, and they were waiting for me. As soon as I was walking past the blocks, the women were banging on the windows, calling out Cedar Wall. They knew I was coming because the news said I was coming. They took me to a smaller block that only had like 6 women in it. And I go in very quietly, and I sit down, and nothing is said. Nobody asks who I am. And I hadn't yet made a plan of what I was going to say. Um, but they knew who I was. And I didn't realize that as soon as they as soon as it was out in the open, they were like, "Yeah, we know who you are." And they pulled out a newspaper that they had been hiding, and I was on the front page. And they said as soon as I walked in, they looked at me and knew that I hadn't done it, and so they had my back.
The thing that I never understood is, especially when it comes to, because I've heard stuff like this before. One of the things I don't understand is like, people that are locked up, a lot of them claim innocence, right? So it's like,
Yeah,
it's not what I
yeah,
am. They claim an innocence. And you would think that the one common denominator they would have is you don't trust the news. You wouldn't trust the media, right? Because
right.
you yourself went down that road. But when I heard you say that, and it's like they were able to come with a conclusion based off of what the news said, you would think that that'd be the entity you would not trust, right? Like, show me
Yeah,
paperwork. So um, do you think that conclusion has to do with making themselves feel better, or like at least I'm not that? Do you think there's anything like
maybe.
that going on?
I think for some, yeah. I think also, I mean, even now, if somebody hears my story, a lot of people automatically do not believe it. And what I honestly believe in my heart, the reason they don't believe me is because I'm so ordinary. If it can happen to me, that's scary because it can happen to anyone.
Anybody? Yep. 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 So your inmates turn out to be good people, as in like they care about you, right? They care about you. They're your friends, and regardless of why they're in there in that moment,
Yeah.
they're the closest thing you have.
Yes. My mom brought my son to see me uh, shortly after I was put into the cell because I hadn't seen him. He hadn't seen
How
me in
old would he have
weeks.
been at this time?
He was just shy of his first birthday. I missed his first birthday. Yeah. And also, I just disappeared while he slept, and he never saw me again. And I can only imagine how devastating that kind of abandonment must be at any age, much less an
Mhm.
age where you can't understand or ask. Um, I missed his first steps, but they took me to the visitation room, and as you may or may not know, you can't touch them. There's
The
that big
glass.
plexiglass
Yeah. Yep.
window, right, with the little phone, with the phone there, and I just sit down on the stool and I see his face, and honestly, that's all I can see is his face. And he he's sitting on my mom's lap, and he gets up and climbs onto the ledge, and he tries, like, he looks excited at first, right, and he tries to reach out for me, but he hits the window, and
Mm.
then he tries again, and then he gets mad at the window, and he starts smacking the window and smacking it, and he presses his face against it, and he just slides down and puts his head down, and he didn't cry or anything. He just looked like he gave up. He was so just devastated.
Yeah.
And my mother said, "Is it too hard for me to bring him here?" And I said, "No, I got to see what I'm fighting for."
Yeah. 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 I have a 4-year-old daughter and a 1-year-old daughter, and just the thought of them with the window, that guy's, yeah, I don't want to think about that for too long. Yeah. Yeah. So, so was he able to visit you quite often, frequently, or?
We had visiting, uh, they have visiting days. I want to say I remember it being twice a week or once a week
Okay.
that they were allowed. But as most inmates will tell you, it seems like when you first get in, you get visitors every visiting day and they kind of trickle off. So
Yeah.
towards, months are going by and the visits for, people have lives, I understand. So there were days when there were no visits, but
Yeah. How long were you? You say months, and like, how long were you?
so
How long
it
did this
took
trial go through?
I was arrested in early May, and I took a plea bargain 2 days before Christmas. So I I'm not minimizing this, but it
No.
could have been worse.
Yeah.
It could have been worse. I did finally get a bond reduction and was got. Let me back up a little bit. So as soon as I got to Illinois, that's when my abuser starts pursuing full custody of my son, and so he waited till I was, tucked away behind bars, and then said, "Okay, well, she can't, so I'm going
Defend
to."
herself.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you, when you accepted the plea, was it like, again, I don't know these things very well, so I'm kind of just going off, so I might say things out of line, but
Mhm.
was it similar, like, hey, I wasn't very educated, I just needed to go see my kid? Was it I was pressured to do this? And does that make sense? Like, is it like, because again, when I was talking earlier, I know like in the inner cities, this happens to young boys where they don't have the resources, they don't have the energy, they don't know what's
Yeah.
in front of them, they don't have a good lawyer, so they just accept what's in front of them, right? Because they're not trying to get the 25 to life or something. For
Right.
you, was it I just want to get out of here as quickly as I can, so I took it, or
Well, that's a
were you
good
advised to
question.
take it?
Uh, So what it comes down to is there were months and months of continuances, and every time we go to court, there would be another reason why something couldn't happen, right? And the
What are some of those things would be like? Just for a lot of us, I have no idea.
um, like there would be it would be like an excuse, like what I
It's
am
snowing
told, what
outside.
my yeah, what so my the way my lawyers explained to me is, so basically the DA would request a continuance for okay, for like the bond reduction hearing or whatever hearing. He would request a continuance, just meaning to delay it. And that is a strategy meant to drain us of our resources, financial and emotional resources. Is a very good
Yeah.
strategy because my brother went bankrupt as a result of this. He helped with when my bond was finally reduced to 70,000. He went bankrupt getting me out on bail. Um,
What's your brother's
so
name?
Aaron,
Shout
I'm
out
sorry,
Aaron.
Aaron.
Hey, Aaron, let's go. Key and Peele, I love it. Hey, Aaron, that's you know what? We'll call him Aaron because of what he did. Even though he is
Yeah,
a Aaron, he deserves Aaron for this one.
yeah.
Well
He's
done,
he's
Aaron.
tremendous. He also was the guardian ad litem while I was behind bars. The court appointed him temporary guardian. And so because my case was so much in the news, they wanted to keep my murder trial separate from the custody case. I, so they had my son had his own lawyer, for his interests, and
Yeah.
I had two separate lawyers for my case, and then all of his uh, going to court was in a different city. So that judge,
Was this
that
like
the
worldwide news? Like this like
well, let's think of worldwide news in 1998.
that's fair.
So
That's fair.
the
That's
internet
fair.
wasn't like it is,
Yeah.
and like if you
But
were
it
to
sounds like if
Google,
it were though, it would be. Like if we were to compare it to what if something like that happened today, it would be out there. It sounds like what you're
right?
saying. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure I wouldn't have a very good time going back to my hometown only because it was such a scandal. It was,
Yep.
but the the judge overseeing my son's custody after, like, my abuser's sister and her mother-in-law that let us live in the house, they came and testified against him, and
That is huge.
it was huge. It was
That's
so
huge.
so huge. She had said, "You know what? Listen to this." His sister actually said to me afterwards, she said, "If you had told me, I would have helped you." I didn't tell her because that was her brother, and I would just assume that's where loyalties lie. Um, but just goes to show you, if you ask for help, you can find it. But anyway, she was there for that, and
That's tough to do when you've grown up in a household you just don't express things. Like I
right,
on
yeah,
a smaller scales, I know what that feels like where it's like, man, if you just told me, Josh, that you're going through this, I could help you. I'm like,
yes,
yes. Yeah.
yes,
But it's tough. It's tough. Like if you're not in it, you're not in it, you don't know. It's just
yes, I
yeah. And it's
agree.
not like you choosing to do it. It's like it's actually not an option in your mind. It
Yeah,
doesn't exist. Yeah.
I yes, I agree with you completely. Well, the judge ultimately, after hearing all these things and hearing about his all his jobs, and then also he told the court that he didn't abuse me, I actually abused him. The judge
How was he
said,
affording a judge? A lawyer.
"That's a good question." After that day in court, the attorney dropped him because he hadn't made any payments. So
I was
this
about
was
to
his last
say,
day in court. Yeah. So the judge said, as long as this boy's mother is free to take care of him, I will never give you custody of this child. That's what the judge said. And so you know what I heard? I got to get free.
hmm.
So,
When you said free, free from jail or just free?
yes,
Okay,
I could
okay,
not,
okay.
yeah, because I can't care for my son behind bars. So uh, down, fast forward a few months, we're still battling continuances. We have no money. I can't even express how many thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars we're going to lawyer fees and everything. So um, they offered me a deal. The DA offered me a deal, and this guy was rotten anyway. He said they offered a lesser felony of a concealment of a homicide, and which is ridiculous because there's no homicide. There's no body, there's no evidence, there's nothing. But if
Did they
I
just need to get a win or something?
at this point I think there was they're saving some face, and it had been painted up so scandalous, and yeah, they were going to make it some big groundbreaking case of a murder conviction without a body, right? And my lawyer said, don't take the deal. They wouldn't be making an offer if they thought that they could win. They wouldn't be doing this. And my mother said, don't take the deal. You can't say you're guilty. And my future husband said, do you want to take that risk of going to court, going to trial in the state that has the highest rate of wrongful convictions, in with a jury that has been listening to all the media for months and months? This is a huge risk. So I I asked if I took the plea bargain, would I have to do any more time? And they said they would give me the 6 months time served and a year's probation, and it was the only real guarantee that I would be free to raise my son. And I was not willing to gamble. I was not willing to
Because
trust a system.
that would mean that you're the abuser. He would have, so
He would
like let's
have
say you go to
custody.
jail for a year, he would have full custody for a year. It would be
He would
taken
have
away
full
from them, correct?
custody. Did you know that women, when they go to jail, they're more likely to lose their permanent parental rights than men are?
I don't know this.
It was a risk that I did not think was worth taking, and I don't regret taking it. I mean, yeah, it changed all the paths that I took as a felon. It changed everything, but I was I've had a good life. I cannot complain about that. I recently got my civil rights restored, and I voted for the first time in
Well, walk us through
November.
that. Walk us through that. How did that happen?
Um, I've
Congrats, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you. Well,
Seriously.
I don't know if you know what it means to lose your civil rights. Most people just think of the rights to bear arms and a right to vote, but
No,
there
I
are
have
a
a
lot.
brother that can't vote.
Can't vote.
Yep.
You also cannot have financial aid, student aid, Medicaid, food stamps, uh, government housing. You can't have access to any of these things as a felon. Um, and I raised my children. They didn't even know that I was a felon.
Self-information best not said.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I didn't want them. The felony was from my choices, and I did not want them to have to pay for that with their friends not being allowed to come over to play, or people labeling them or whatever. I mean, it affected the fact that I couldn't be the chaperone for their field trips and so forth. And when
Wait, hold up. You can't have people over your house.
no,
I
I
didn't know
didn't
this
want
stuff.
other parents, like
Oh,
if
I
if
see.
your kid came
Yep.
over, yeah, right.
Yep.
I don't
Yep.
know that I want my child go somebody's house. I
Yep.
understand.
Yep.
I understood how people would look at that. So we just were quiet about it for all these years until my children became adults. And specifically, my daughter used to always ask why I didn't go vote.
Yeah.
And I was like, I would always make up some, lame excuse, like, I don't
I
pay
don't
attention
like
to
either candidate.
politics.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
what? I don't think I was doing her any favors minimizing one of our rights, and also minimizing myself and my opinions. And so, anyway, and I had looked at restoring my civil rights, and I honestly, I just fought so much already. I didn't want any more battles. I just wanted to be quiet. But the laws, or they changed, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try. I'm gonna try, and I hit a couple of roadblocks, and I got them restored right before, like it was like weeks before the election, and I went with my daughter, and you know what I did? I cried all over that pole. I cried. They gave me extra sticker. Everybody understood why I was sobbing. It
When
was
they restored
amazing.
your voting, when they are, by the way, congratulations.
Thank
That's
you.
beautiful. I think like for a lot of us that don't vote, right,
Hmm.
and people that don't value that in that way, to hear that's something that gets taken away from you when you become a felon, kind of makes you understand the weight of what that is, right? It's kind of like freedom of speech. You go to another country and you realize you can't say certain things, right? Like, you can find videos on social media of people going to other countries thinking that their freedom of speech holds water, right? It's like you forget, oh man, it's like it's not
Yeah.
everywhere. And so
Yeah.
when that part got fully restored, are you fully restored in all ways, or is it just that area is restored?
Just I have all my civil rights except the right to bear arms, which I'm okay with that because I'm a
Yeah,
lethal weapon anyway.
come on, you got these two hands, right? Yeah.
But yeah, I am still a felon. I would really be I used to think this is going to sound silly maybe, but like I didn't one of the reasons I didn't really go headstrong getting my civil rights restored, or and I act like I'm fine with not being
Yeah,
exonerated, is because I felt like they labeled me, so that's just what I am. I'm going to wear this scarlet A, and I'm going to, I
come
guess it's
on.
an F, and I'm going to be the
Yeah,
best felon
it's
ever. And but then my husband had to be all like logical and stuff, and he said to me, "How do you expect things to get better if you don't give people the opportunity to fix things?" And I'm like, "Oh,
hey,
you're
facts.
right. You're right. I would like to give the governor of Illinois the opportunity to fix this and exonerate me. I would like that very much." But right now, I think I'm at a point where I've written a memoir, right? It
Yeah.
took me 6 years to write this memoir, and I've only recently started pitching it, and I've only just now learning the message is more important than the story, and the story is not even really about me. Um, it's
What
about
is that message?
the message is that I got a wild poo over here. She's talking to the UPS guy. Um, my poodle.
No, you get. I think this thing has like background cancellation, so I don't even think we heard that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So, my message is that we're all ultimately changed and colored by everyone and everything that we experience on our path. And as long as we support each other in these changes, we can be stronger and resilient, and we can get through anything. And so I hope to increase awareness around not only the the domestic violence and the women's health and the inmate treatment. I would love to increase awareness on this, but also, hey, we can do this. We can get through it. If I can get through this, and honestly, I couldn't have gotten through it without support. And it sounds strange, but yes, I had a support system behind bars. I was only just learning to build a support system before I was arrested. And I understand more than ever that we need each other. And
yeah.
one of the things I love to do, I've been accused of this being my special gift, is I love connecting people together. Because I really do. I just, I know we can we can survive anything. We are meant to be resilient when we're strong.
Yeah, I know that message you kind of gave was almost like a 30,000 view, right? Because it can be applicable to anybody in all their situations. I have people even close to me that are in abusive relationships, whether that's physical, mental abuse, right? Emotional abuse. Um, you've been in that situation. You've been in those roads. You know the thought process that goes on in those situations. What would is a direct message you would give to them, like specifically for them?
My message is not just to them, to the people who are in this or going through this, because what needs to happen is we need to be able to not be victims. I mean, it's terrible that we're being victimized, but we need to feel like survivors, right? Not victims. We need to feel like survivors. And in order to make that happen, we need our support system not to give up on us. So my message is not to the people going through it, it's to the ones that love them. Don't give up on us. Do not close the doors. Let us talk to you. And don't tell us, God, please don't tell us if we don't do it the way you think we should, that you're going to walk away.
It's a good message. That's well said. Absolutely well said. It makes sense. It makes sense in the sense of like, um, yeah, we sometimes forget people on the outside looking in that the lens we're looking through is not always the clearest, right? And what you're looking through doesn't look like what the individual is going through. And so to be able to be patient and just steadfast and continuous, that's I like that. I like that. So the current situation, obviously your son is 27, you said?
Yes,
Right? So you got to even though you missed the first birthday, right? It sounds like you were able to be a
I
part of
was
the
for,
rest.
yes, yes.
Yes.
And I have a daughter who is
Oh, you got a
25.
dog too?
Yes,
Okay, okay. I think the listeners and I definitely want to hear this. Um, so Aaron, that was your brother.
yes.
And then what was your husband's name?
Stan.
Stan the man, Stan the man.
Yes.
So just kind of what was that road like as far as I mean, how did you guys meet after that? And then obviously
Stan
you guys
is
had kids
the
together.
only person that my son has ever called dad. He's been there from the very beginning. Uh, um, and honestly, I cannot even express how much, like, I know what I was going through, but
Yeah,
Stan barely knew me. I mean, we had only like just started dating for a couple weeks when I was arrested and charged with murder. He had every reason in the world to walk away. I mean, it would have
yeah.
made a lot of sense to me, but and honestly, yes. And a couple times during that time, he did say to me, "I can't do this, and let's you. Why don't you
Let's put
get
a
through
pause.
this? Yeah, you
Yeah,
get through
yeah.
this, and then we'll see what happens." He did do that, and but then
Which is more than fair, right?
yes, I
Yes, it's
agree. I cannot fault
more
him
than
for
fair.
being sane.
No, 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 no. Okay, so I
Oh,
do have to ask this question though.
yeah, of course.
How does a person like again, maybe I'm misunderstanding something. How does a person like you not come out angry at the world?
I do not
Yeah,
know.
I don't understand
Because
that.
honestly, not to sound corny, I love people. I love them so much. I love meeting new people. I love hearing their stories. And that's just, it's just humans. Humans keep me going. They're funny. They crack me up all the
Yeah,
time. Um, life is so great, and how could I? How because look, all that awful shit has brought
yeah,
me right here, and I
yeah.
had so much good in my life, and I have tremendous friends. I have a wonderful uh I'm her emotional support human. I have this terrific dog that I walk over to my neighbor's house every day and we have puppy play time. My life is so good. My husband, super supportive, and I spend my days writing and acting. And there is, uh, I'm not. I refuse to give my abuser or the people who did this to me that power over me. I let that go so long ago. I don't have time for bitter. I just don't.
So when you look at the woman in the mirror, right? Um, well, let me preface it with this. I know for me, one of the things I struggle with is that balance between I'm grateful for where my life is,
Hmm.
right? But also the other side of me, which is, I also went through a lot of ish, and I want to I want to learn how to be more gentle, merciful, compassionate to myself. Like I struggle with that. I don't struggle with the outside world in the sense of like I love people. I get that. That part makes a lot of sense. But when it comes to the person in the mirror, that person I have a hard time being merciful, compassionate, gracious, understanding. When you look at the yourself in the mirror, do you feel like you have good thoughts about yourself, or is that something you're still working on, or like
I
do you
think we're
love yourself in the way? Yeah.
we're all a work in progress. And yeah, I am definitely harder on myself than
Yep.
anybody could even think to be. I told my husband years ago, I know everything that's wrong with me. I don't need you to tell me. But um, honestly, I think the best way to answer that is just I look in the mirror and I'm not thrilled. Not all the
Mm.
time. Sometimes I am. I'm not. Sometimes I'm like, you did good, but
Let's
a lot of
go.
times I look in the mirror and I say, you can do better. And so I try. I try like hell, just to do better. And I'm still trying. I used to say to myself in jail to build myself
Yeah.
up. When I would want to just quit and be done, I would say, I'm not done yet. I've still got more to do. And I think that still holds true. I'm not done yet. And if I can help or even just bring a little hope or make someone laugh, that makes me feel pretty good, and I can live on that.
Yep. Yep. I feel like there's something about I know for me too, but when you have a rough upbringing, or we're not upbringing, but like when you've gone through rough stuff in life, it's true. Helping other people, making other people smile, it does help personally. Like it really does. Because there's a party that looks at their pain and their struggles, and you want to ease that for them, right? Because you tend to be more empathetic.
Yeah,
So how did you enter into? Obviously, you're a comedian in the sense of just our conversations and the jokes, the text messages, right? That still makes me laugh. So walk me through how did you get into acting? How did you get into comedy?
that is funny. So as a kid, I mean, I would want to be that person, but I was never comfortable or never asked and never, I just didn't. It wasn't something. But my daughter wanted to do drama really bad, right? And so when she was 8 and my son was 10, we enrolled them in this family theater, Hurrah Family Players. And they started taking classes there and then being in the shows and stuff. And Marissa, when she was 16, she really wanted to be in Footloose. And she said, will you audition? Because I think I'll have a better chance if you
Is
audition
that
too.
Kevin Bacon? Is that Kevin Bacon for
Yeah,
Liz?
well, the movie was. This was the musical.
Oh, music. Okay,
Footloose the
okay,
musical. Yes. Don't
okay.
ask me if I can sing. So I was like, all right, sure, I'll audition. And I got the role of Aunt Lulu, who's like the comedic relief in the show.
Sounds like
And
good casting.
it was so fun. Let me tell you, and what a family summer that was because my husband got the role of the cranky principal, and we performed all summer, and it was great. And then we did other shows together, all on stage, and um, met some great lifelong friends. But then Marissa says, "I really want to try film." right? So there was some movie was shooting in downtown Norfolk, and she wanted to be in the background, but she was not 18, and it was like an all night shoot. I'm like, cool, I'll do it with you. So she and I went to be in the background in this film, and we did that. And then she wanted to do other stuff, so I supported that. Took her to auditions and stuff, and I got some roles. And then she's like, I really don't want to do this anymore. And I'm like, oh, well, I
Mm.
kind of like it.
You can get off the bus. I'm working behind this a little while.
So I just kept on going, right? And then I've done a lot of stuff. It's been great. So I've worked with Andreas, how we met a few years back.
Yeah, it
And
makes
then,
sense. Okay.
yeah, and done a lot of commercial and film work, done a few commercials with my husband. And then a couple of my friends, like, uh, well, they both came in my ears on different days and said, we should write stuff together. I'm like, yeah, yeah, right. We should write. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And then, they were like, yeah, we really should. We should write the roles that we want to have because the roles for, the, there's not a lot of roles out there for women of our age. And we wanted to write what we wanted to write. And then we decided we wanted to do something that would be like empowering but funny, and
Mhm.
so because people listen more when you make them laugh and when you make them ashamed or angry. And we wanted to bring in more like underrepresented people into what we were working on. So we formed BAB on Three Productions, and we've got a
I was
full
reading that behind you. I was like, is that saying babe on three? Bab on
BAB on
three?
Three. Take a wild
Okay,
guess
see,
what BA. Yeah,
uh I've read babe on three. Like BAB, like babe on
yeah.
three.
Well, people
But
say
okay, what does it stand
Babs,
for? Babs.
badass bitches.
There it is. I could have
Yeah,
guessed it. I should have.
yeah, you
I
could have
should have.
guessed it.
That
I
was
was
mine.
waiting for.
That was me. That was me. I should have guessed. I should have guessed.
So the
Yeah.
premise
I
of
knew you.
our the comedy that we're working on right now, or that we've got a full season of shorts for of BAB on Three on our YouTube channel, and now we're kind of looking for grants and funding to do a second season. But the premise is that it's about three actresses that are over 40 and aging out of the industry, but they are struggling to get what they think are their dream roles. So it looks at stereotypes and friendship and all the good stuff and ageism that goes with it. So we've had a great time writing together and bonding over it, and bringing other professionals in to do stuff with. We have people like waiting, um, chomping at the bit, wanting to work on an episode or direct or shoot for us. So we're having a really good time with it.
You guys just learned. You guys just gained a subscriber. So I
Oh,
just subscribed
sweet!
to.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm actually about to watch these. I didn't know this. So this is cool. So I'll definitely be watching these. One of the things that I admire about you and just this conversation that we've had is um, there's a lot of there's a lot of reasons based off of what you've gone through for someone to isolate themselves, to feel ashamed, to um, decide like hate the world, right? Hate everything. Um, and for you to choose such a positive outlet, for you to choose such a positive path, for you to um, jumping into acting, to use comedy, to even just the way that you've interviewed this conversation, I can tell that there's a lot of this that you have found freedom in. Like it's not just somebody that's telling someone go do the hard work that haven't done it themselves, but clearly you have done a lot of work. Even though, there's still moments where sarcasm or comedy kicks in, but regardless of the path that you've gone down, I think that part of you would have always been there. Like I think there is a comedic side of you. I think there is this ability for you to go into a room and to light up the spaces around you. Um, what I really appreciate is that it sounds like your space. It's not just you lighting up everybody else, but it sounds like you actually yourself have been lit up, and that's beautiful to see. Like the family stability that you have right now, the relationship that you have with your son, the relationship you have with your husband, the support that you're getting from him. The fact that, I mean, even when you tell everybody, hey, don't give up on me, right? And prime example is your brother, your mom, your dad, all of them that didn't give up on you. Um, there's just there is hope. There's hope, and I hope that the people that are listening to this that are in this situation, we talked about this earlier, where it's like sometimes the easy path, right, the most predictable path, happens to be the destructive path. But
Yeah,
you've just been there for so long, it's easy for people to stay there. And for you to tell people, warning the rest, not warning us, but advising the rest of us, like, hey, we may not go down the path that you want us to go down, but just don't give up on us. And now you're on this path, which I don't know if you've ever thought that you could be where you are right now. And it's better than you imagined. It is better than you imagined. And that is beautiful. Like, I just want you to know that is beautiful. Um, so where are you at right now in your life? What's going on? What's your new adventure? I know you said you're working on a memoir. You have
right.
a YouTube channel. Yep.
Recently, and well, I guess it was in November, I received an award that meant so
Oh,
much to me. I did. It was um, Focus on Women magazine invited me to their gala, and I was awarded a Woman of Impact 2024.
come on.
Yeah, it was amazing. And then I get there and I get this wonderful award, and I get to speak to these fantastic people about what happened. People who really listened to the
Yeah.
message, and not only did they listen. So one of the other speakers that night, Mayor Kashina Cross, she's from the Annapolis area. She was talking, and she's pretty badass herself. But anyway, she says to me from up in front, she says, "And my husband knows your story. I'll talk to you later." And I'm like, "Yeah, that's nice for her to say. She doesn't know my story. My memoir's not even published yet." But then she comes and she walks up to me and she says, "Here's my husband." He was standing behind me recording his wife. And she said, "He knows you." And he had been stationed, he was in the military and was stationed in the Chicago area in 1998. And he said he saw all the news and the articles and everything about me. And he said he was outraged that somebody could be put behind bars and criminalized with no evidence. And to me, that was so validating, that it like brought the two pieces of my life together. Like, this did happen. I knew it happened. I'm not crazy, am I? Because sometimes it feels like I can't be this and this, but I am. I'm all of this. Sometimes I'm going to make a joke, but sometimes, shit's going to get real.
Yep. Yep.
And it was tremendous. It, just that meant so much to me. And then I also received the Maryland General Assembly awarded me their Courageous Activist Award. And I feel like I'm on the path. Sometimes you think to yourself, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing. And now I think for the first time in my life, maybe I am. Maybe this is what I'm supposed to be doing. I'm sure my mother would be happy about that. Um, I'm speaking to groups and women's groups and organizations, and taking part in in things that are improving the way trauma survivors are treated and the expectations of. And I think that's where I'm meant to be. I mean, obviously the writing and the comedy, that's huge. I guess if somebody said you must choose one thing, I would like to be able to leave this world a better place for my daughter and for everyone's daughter. And I mean, that's kind of what I mean when I say this isn't about me. It's about what we're going to leave behind. And if I can do that, that would be everything else is cake, and cake is my favorite food. So, I mean, that's huge.
Kind of cake.
Angel food, not an animal.
Yeah. Dude, the best cake I've ever had till this day is still Costco cake. I don't know what it is about Costco cake. It is. My mom used to do that for our birthdays, right? It would just be this gigantic, and it would be in, and then it would be there for like weeks because we had to put it in the fridge, and then You nibble at it because it was huge, but it's like there's something about those cakes, and so I don't know. I do love cake, but I'm very particular on where I get it from,
Mm-hmm.
and it can't be chocolate.
Costco.
It's got to be yeah. I'm all about the vanilla. It's all vanilla
Yeah,
for me.
yeah,
Yeah.
same. But angel food, Mama used to make me an angel food cake for my birthday, and then I don't know if have you ever had angel food cake?
Mm-mm.
Okay, it's the cake that it's mostly it's a butt ton of egg whipped egg white, so it's real light and fluffy, right? And then after you make it in a special tube pan, you have to turn it upside down and let it rest like that so it doesn't sink, right? So there's this like nice brown crunchy crust at the top, and I would be allowed
Put
to.
like what strawberries and stuff on it, or what do you
You
put on
could,
it?
yes, yes. I think a lot of people do that. I just want to eat it. Doesn't matter.
Straight
Fluffy
up.
marshmallow frosting, whatever. Sprinkles. I know now that I'm old that sprinkles make everything better.
That's what I tell people. There's two ingredients, no matter what you make. You just add these two things, and it'll make anything better, and that's cheese and bacon. Whatever you're making, if it
Yeah.
tastes bad, just add cheese and bacon, and let that thing take itself. But uh, Gina, I feel like I say this every week to whoever I talk to next. It's like because and it is genuine and it's true, but it's like it is an absolute honor talking with you. When I was talking to Andre, I was like, "Hi man, you got the next person," and he was like, "Oh man, buckle up, I got somebody for you, right?" And so it's like you never know when people say they got somebody for you, right? And and he really hit it out the park with this one. I am very encouraged by the kind of person that came out of all of this.
Well, thank
Like
you.
I'm really
Thank you.
encouraged by it. Your sense of humor is very beautiful. Your level of vulnerability is very very beautiful. I think I was kind of hinting at some stuff even when I was talking about myself and like I feel like I'm at the beginning stages of where you are, right? Like what you've gone through, right? And when I look at quirky or weird people, and I look at some of the people I admire, I find out they're like that. I don't know if you've ever heard of Rich Mullins, right? Quirky dude, weird guy. Rich Mullins, right? Francis Chan, I like, right? So, um, but then just even like outside of those places, like um, I tend to always gravitate to the people that don't go by the books. And it's not that, and the reason primarily is the fact that um, they are true to who they are. And I've realized for a long time I've hid and I'm trying to be more comfortable with who I am. And it's not like I'm embarrassed or something, but rather it's just I have a fear that I might get rejected if I am who I am, right? And that probably has something to do with being an orphan at some point.
Yeah, yeah. I think that makes sense.
And
I
then
would like to
to
tell you
yeah,
some very good advice that my grandmother said to
please.
me. She said, "Not everybody's gonna like you. Fuck them."
That should be the title of this podcast. Oh, dude, that might be the podcast title. That is wow, wow. That is that's true. And one thing I think we've learned in this podcast and just talking with you is that um, what is true is very easy, right? It's very easy to know what is the right thing to do, but to actually act on it and trust it and to believe it, that's where the real battle is. And so thank you for being on this podcast. I actually would like to have you on another day and talk a little more about your life on the other side of this because it sounds
Okay.
like there's a lot going on. Your memoir, you said you're not finished with it. When do you think you'll be done with it?
No, it's all written. I'm now
It's written.
pitching to
Okay.
yeah, I'm pitching to agents. You know any good memoir agents? But that's where I'm at right now.
Sounds like Andre might be a good person to talk to because I know he's
Oh, Andre
raising
knows
some
my
money
deal.
for like his.
Yeah. Andre's
Yep, 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 yep.
yeah.
Yeah, but it'd be interesting to make your life into a film somehow. I feel like you can really. I feel like it's that intriguing, and I think there's a lot of values. There's a lot of truths. There's a lot of message to communicate from your life. But next time I think I do this podcast, I think with you, I think I would like to have Stan the Man join because I think it'd be cool to have both of you guys. Like, I don't know anything about Stan the Man, but I feel comfortable saying Stan the Man. So,
Yes, you
thank you
you
for being
may.
on this podcast.
Yes,
Do you have
absolutely.
any? Yep. And then, do you have any message that you want to give to anybody as we close out? Any other additional thoughts you have?
I think I would like to leave it on what my grandmother said. Honestly, I don't
What's
think I
that?
can
Can you
top. You
remind the
can't
speakers
top.
one more time? Yeah,
Huh?
yeah, yeah. What did your grandma say? What did your grandma say?
She said, "Not everybody's gonna like you. Fuck them."
And with that, we'll end this podcast. Thank you so much, Gina.
Thank you.